Titans, and good morning, good day, good afternoon, whenever you're deciding to tune into this podcast. This is Coffee Talk with Jared Bartow. I'm going to get right into it. There's a good amount of topics that I'd like to share with you today that I'd like to talk about. I do have my notes up on other screens, so if you see me looking around, it's really just to make sure I stay on topic, because I will tangent a lot and I will steamroll a conversation, and I can steamroll it today because it's just me. I'm not doing any guests yet, though we will be doing that. So let's do a little bit of matter of fact things as we get into to what we're doing today. So there will be guests coming on, and apparently the blue screen is thinking that my shirt that I'm wearing is blue, even though it's not. So let's see if we can get situated for the video viewers. The audio guys are like, just keep going, man. I'm not watching a video. I don't care. So a couple things of housekeeping, not housewarming, but housekeeping items. We will be doing guest podcasts coming up probably within a few weeks here. There's a little bit of travel I will be doing at the end of the month as I'm recording these now ahead of time. That doesn't matter to you. It's just me talking about schedules in general. And then we'll get into a lot of discussion of what people are seeing in the world, of what they're experiencing that might be similar to what you're doing. So as you know, you can leave any comments for me. You can shoot me any messages, emails, all the contact information will be in the show notes there. And I will be talking at the very end about how you can start to get on track with some of the things you care about, some of the things that might be popping in your mind and you just don't know who to talk to. I have a method you can do at zero cost to you. It just takes your time. So we'll talk about it at the end. But for now, let's dive into the actual good material that we wanted to talk about. So as you see in some of these notes, you'll notice that I will give a time breakdown of where things are. And I've always enjoyed that in podcasts. I've always enjoyed that in any type of sessions that I would be watching or reviewing anything, to give me an idea if I just wanted to jump around. Like maybe you pop on and you're like, Jared, I don't really need to know everything you're talking about. I got things to do. I'm busy, right? I had a colleague reach out that was a listener. Also, geez, I can't even put my hand up to like scratch my beard or anything. But anyway, so I had a discussion with her, and she had said, you had my attention, except the coffee bean stuff. I'm like, I know. I listened back to it. I'm like, nobody cares about the coffee beans but me. And if you do, just shoot me a message. Be like, I care. Talk about it. We just want to get the material. So for what I was thinking about is that led me into some of the thought processes that I had. Now, over the weekend, my one son is in football. It's his first year playing football. And with the way he is with it, he kind of likes it, kind of doesn't like it. He's in that mid space where he's good at it, but he doesn't have a passion for it. So when he doesn't have a passion for it, and you might be able to relate to this, he doesn't really care. He's like, I'll just do it. And that's all there is to it. He's not quitting. And he didn't have one kid like, hey, do you like football? He's like, no, I don't really like it. Why don't you quit? My dad says I can't. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's part of it. But they also want you to try and give an effort into something you've never done yet before. So one of the things that I heard during the plays they were doing, now he plays safety, so he's in the defense a lot. He's been in a couple situations where he's been on offense as a tight end and all this. But the point that I'm bringing up to this little story is that I overheard the head coach look at one of the players and said, hey, come here. You didn't make the tackle, and that's okay. But you were part of the play that made that happen. Great job. Get back in there. And then instantly thought, the thought that popped in my head, how many times, and you don't have to answer this, of course, but how many times have you and I been involved in something where we indirectly caused a result to happen, but maybe directly we had nothing to do with it? Like in sports, it's easy to determine that. You'll have somebody who makes a goal, like in hockey, and then there's somebody who helped them as the assist. It could be the same thing in basketball. You pass the ball to somebody who's running under the net, and they're going to do a layup or a dunk, or however you pass it, they jump back out to the top of the key, whatever. But can we really adjust that in our real life? Like, it's easy to determine in a competitive side because we know that there's going to be an end goal that we can count on. But again, it started to make me in that thinking process of the difference between a direct impact versus an indirect, or maybe the things we say to ourselves directly or indirectly, the things we say to other people, directly saying it to them, indirectly saying it to them. Like my favorite, and I know all of you are probably in the same boat, when it comes to gossip, it's very hard to turn a deaf ear to what's being talked about. It's also hard to turn a blind eye to what you might be seeing and going, ooh, I've seen enough of this, and I'm going to tell everybody in the world, because we like to do that. It makes us feel like we're connected. It feels good. That is the direct. The indirect of what happens there is we start to pass minor judgments on people. and I'm guilty of this, so it's something I've been working on for a long time. But we start to pass judgments on people that we don't know the full story. We don't know everything that's going on in their life. We've taken a snapshot, a little bit of detail, and we have now created an entire conglomerate of what it is that we're dealing with. And it's not a good space to be in. So in any event, we are looking at this as we want to grow as people, right? I had to pause it real quick. We want to grow as people. We turn into this situation where we're not really sure how we want to approach people. We're not really sure like how we want to look at when it comes to that gossip side, but it feels good. The challenge is, like I said, we make a snapshot of these people. We pass judgment on a one inner moment here. And then we have completely decided that that's who they are and that's how we're going to look at them. That is not good. It's not a pleasant spot to be in, especially when you flip the roles and you start looking at it from the sense of, what if people did this to me? What if they took just a brief moment in time at my weakest moment or at my roughest moment, they see me freaking out with the kids because they didn't see the 30-minute buildup that happened behind closed doors. All they get to see is directly what happened, the explosion, the erosion that might occur with something or someone in your family. This blue screen is killing me here. This result of what you're going to see. And they start to make a judgment of what that looks like. They start to pass on what that's going to be. And it starts to throw you and I off, because then we start looking at ourselves in a way of maybe we're too harsh on ourselves because we're worried about what somebody's watching. Now, we'll talk about that piece of like who's actually watching at the very end of it, of the session today. But really what I'm aiming at here is directly, what are we doing? And indirectly, what are we doing? And what happens when we make a choice? Let's dive in a little bit to you're driving to work. You're driving anywhere on a road that you've been familiar with. You may not remember 100% of the entire journey. And somebody would be like, that's awful. How are you not paying attention on the road? And then they're going to do the same thing. Like they'll be on their phone, they'll hit a red light, and then they'll start scrolling to see what's going on because, like the rest of us, I can't wait till we get to our destination. We need to know if somebody engaged on a post we just made, because that's important, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if we hit the car in front of us. It's important if I got 30 likes on this last post that I made because I thought it was funny. And everybody else should think it's funny too. Like that's that's the dopamine thought that comes into play. On your way to wherever it is you're going, to a familiar location, how many times did you actually say to yourself, okay, I'm going to lift my foot off of the brake pedal. I'm going to move my leg over and my foot with my ankle to the gas pedal. And I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure just to get some momentum, and then I'll apply a little bit more. I'm also going to tell my hands to move the wheel in the way it needs to go, whether I'm driving 1-2 hands. I'm also going to use my other hand to hold on to my coffee cup, my water cup, whatever it is that you've got going on. And you're convincing yourself, you have to tell yourself to do this, right? How many of you have done that? I don't know, because I've never done that. I've never sat, maybe when I first started driving, I would tell myself, okay, now lift your foot up real quick. Okay, stop, the car's moving too fast. Like that's the learning process. And now all of a sudden, driving 20 some odd years, now it's like a muscle memory, right? It just, we can go to our destination because we know where it is. We don't have to think about what we're doing. We're cognizant of what's happening. Like we're aware, but we're also not like 100% sitting there focused on every little detail. And the problem, not really the problem, but the challenge with that is that there's so much data coming in. There's so many things receptive that we can see directly that we have to train our muscle memory, our motor functions on an indirect path. So we don't have to always think about how much energy it takes to stop at a red light, how much energy it takes to push on the gas pedal, how much energy it takes for me to wave my hands as I'm talking, because that's somehow just how I talk, how much muscle memory I need to use to pick up my coffee cup, just to put it to my mouth, to then put the coffee in and actually swallow the coffee, to taste the coffee, to have it processed through my system. Like, how many of us are actually sitting here and thinking, okay, I need to use 30 some odd muscles in my shoulder, my arm, my hand to close my fingers? We're not, right? And for us to sit here and say, yes, I do, power to you, person, power to you, Titan, because you are like at a God level then, because I don't know how that brain of yours can process that. I just, congratulations to you. If you're like the rest of us humans and back on the plebe status of those not superhuman, we don't think about those things. We're probably thinking about the words we just shared with our partner when we left the house. We're probably thinking about maybe a phrase that we have said to our children that we didn't really mean. We said it to ourselves, but we didn't say it to them. Maybe we're thinking about that missed bill that I didn't pay. Maybe we're thinking about the last words I got to speak with my parent before they left, or before they passed away, or a loved one, or the thing I could have said on the sales call, or the thing I could have done in an interview. Like, we're thinking about those things. Our direct attention is on that. And the power of our brains, so amazing, so powerful. It will take care of all these other items for us while we focus on the things that we are concerned about, the things that matter to us. So while we are directly focusing on what's occurring in our life right now and the emotions that we have and the way we would like to feel about something, everything that's happening, about 95% you've probably heard, is unconsciously happening without us thinking about it. So there's both positive and not so good positive that comes with this. And not really like a morality of good or bad, but more of, if we're not careful about what we put into our brain processing powers and whatever we type in here, whatever we consume, we can indirectly hurt ourselves and the people we care about by our direct choices, because they are going hand in hand. Now, I'll tie into like the intangible self-care and the results and all that in the next segment here, but I wanted to tee this up. I would like to have teed this up for you to get you in that thought process of, what are we actually consuming that we directly want to influence ourselves? I know the adverse effects of coffee. I know what's going to happen. I know that I will hit a peak and then I will crash. I know this. So what I've done is I've prepared my day around that, because it's Coffee Talk with Jared Bartow, or warm beverage, whatever it is of your choice. I have learned what that is. So I've seen the habit that I have, the routine that ends up following that, is that if I am focused on doing the work that I care about, the things that I do, the impact like this, doing this with you, because I love doing this. I love creating these episodes. I love putting material together to share what I've learned. I know that I'm a maven of technology knowledge when it comes to it. I'm the maven of tech, right? Most people have said I'm like an alien from another planet. I don't know how I know. I just know. And because I don't really know, it's hard to teach that. But what I can teach is what I have learned in my travels of dealing with people and communicating and all these other areas that we take for granted that most people wish they could have. So what that looks like for you and I is that we sit in this space. We sit in these areas that we would love to be fully in control of. We would love to have a direct impact on that, especially say at a job. You might be at a job site right now and you're like, I don't have a direct impact because I'm this like middle person. I feel like a line person where all I'm doing is just checking this, or all I'm doing is just forwarding emails. All I'm doing is just setting up calendars. All I'm doing is just writing up requirements. All I'm doing, like, you can justify whatever it is. You may not have a direct impact on the revenue generation of a company. You may not have the direct impact on seeing somebody's life change because of the choices you're making. You have an indirect impact on everything around you because of directly what you're choosing. All that means is that choice that you make today, part of your job responsibilities, whatever it is throughout my day. Mine is today is going to be following up with a few email messages that I did not over the weekend because I wasn't working this weekend. So I'm going to follow up with those. My direct impact may impact sales. It may impact what's going to happen in the growth of the company that I run. But directly, it's letting people know, hey, I didn't ghost you. I remember on the last episode, I talked about like the ghosting aspect for introverts. I remembered you, just didn't get back to you. So typically my first response is, thanks for your patience. And I'll get into that aspect of, here's what I found, or here's what I was able to uncover while it was the weekend and I wasn't really working. And I appreciate it for that you were waiting for me and all this. I'm directly influencing, directly impacting by my response, but indirectly, I'm starting to set up a larger game plan that's happening here, because I may not directly see what they do with the information I share with them. Just like whatever you're sharing wisdom with your children that may not want to listen to that wisdom right now, or you're giving wisdom to your future self based on what you're learning right today. You may not directly know what that impact is, but you are indirectly setting up a conscious and subconscious method of making decisions and choices that lead to behaviors that will grow and nurture and make you at the best version of yourself that you'd like to be at. And a lot of us skip over that because it's not flashy, because it's not as exciting, because there's no bell ringing, there's no awards, there's no cavalcade of love that we would receive on that. It's all based on what we're going to do. And every little detail that we take into consideration either layers into that in a positive way or takes away from it. And the beauty of this is, even all morality aside, no matter religious upbringing or what society is telling us or culture that we're in, even with all the morality aside, whatever we're doing for ourselves, the taking away to adding, the taking away to adding, as long as we are aware of what we're doing and we're directly making those choices of what we're going to listen to, what we're going to watch, and what we're going to read, and what we're going to play, and what we're going to consume, as long as we are aware directly of what that's going to do to us, indirectly, we can make those decisions later on and say to ourselves, yeah, I'm okay with this. I know what could potentially happen. Or we stop ourselves in our tracks and go, wait, I don't know if I like the way that this feels. Let me really think about the alternative if I were to do this. For example, one quick example, and then I'm going to let you go on this. There was, back in July of 2022, this year, as I'm recording, I got my chance to try my first cigar. I've always wanted to try one, right? I had a very traumatic experience with cigarettes when I was like 2 or 3. I don't remember it, again, directly, but I have a thought of what happened. My parents told me that they used to smoke and when I was younger, and I went by as a baby, toddler, whatever, and I put my hand in the ashtray and I licked it. So anytime I see cigarettes or anytime I smell it, I have that taste of the, now, of course, I like threw up and I spit it, whatever, the whole thing that a kid would do, this is gross. Like I had that reaction. So directly, I affected myself for what was going to happen down the road. So indirectly, I now, unless I really want to break that, I look at cigarettes, I'm like, no, that's not for me because of one thing that happened. Now, of course, I could change that. I know the adverse effects. And a grandfather that used to do dip. I know nicotine, tobacco, I know all that, right? So when it came to cigars, I was probably 2 scotches in. So I'm like, sure, why not? Let's give it a shot. It's going to be different. It was slightly different, but the next day I had that nauseated feel. And it's something I'm like, I don't know if this is worth it to me. I don't know if that moment of having a cigar with friends and seeing successful people with drinks and cigars in their hand, like, I don't know if that's my definition of what that looks like. I tried it and I'm not sure I want to get into that. That's not who I would like to be. So that really, I mean, what that really means to me is that I'm not going to, I made a decision. I did not like the effect of that. And I don't care. I didn't care socially what people thought. Like if I'm asked again, no, thanks. I appreciate that. I'm just going to stick to my drink. Or if I'm going to stop drinking, hey, no, thanks. I'm going to stick to having a water or whatever. That's directly and indirectly at the same time affecting who we are, because I know what I would like. I know the behaviors that I would like to have. And that would not lead me to caring about myself. That would indirectly relate to me starting to beat myself up anytime I would see a cigar. Now, it took me about a week or 2 to get used to being around people that would smoke again, like friends of mine or colleagues or whatever in passing, like vaping. It took a long time, but that's okay because I was aware, right? So all I'm really saying to you is when it comes to making our decisions, and directly, indirect, we don't always know the impact that we're going to make. We will not always know the outcome from the people we are interacting with or our decisions. But what we do know is this: we may not directly be in a high result of a big reward, but maybe indirectly, we, by our decisions, are allowing those direct moments to happen. So the next time we look at our jobs, the next time we look at our work and we're like, this sucks. My job, my boss doesn't care about me. My people on my team don't care about me. All I'm doing is this and this and that. You start naming up whatever examples you want. Perhaps, if we start looking at this of, yeah, I may not have a direct impact, but maybe while I'm looking for the work that I would really like to do, maybe I can give my best here, because I know that if I give my best, it makes the direct results, and then maybe there will be something good for me, even if it's not like a tangible. And we'll talk about it in the next segment. So that being said, this is going to be our break. I don't think I have a message for you this time, but if I do, Editing Jared will go ahead and put that in for you. If I do, please enjoy the message. It's for your benefit, I promise. If not, I'm going to take a quick break for you. It's going to be a matter of seconds, and then we're going to get right into the next segment. So I appreciate you. Thank you for listening so far, and I will see you in just a hot minute. Welcome back, Titans. I know it's probably just like a hop, skip, and a jump for you guys. So in the previous segment, right? In the previous segment, I give you a lot of material, and it may have seemed like it was all over the place. And that's just because there's so much of that to unpack in like a 15 to 20-minute segment. And I do it in that way because I would like for you to only take one thing away from each part that you might be listening to. Now, in later iterations, we will have it broken out that it won't be I mean, you'll have the full episode, but you can listen to each segment at a time if you'd like. Just for now, it's all in one. So I'm letting the idea of this flow of if you'd like smaller segments, I can do that too. I record them all in one shot anyway, and then I edit them down as I need to in that space, or, future teams, whatever. You say what you got to say. So for now that we talked about the direct and indirect choices that we make, there definitely comes into that space then of self-care. I've actually had this conversation with my beautiful bride, Liz. Every now and then we will have this self-care discussion of what are you actually doing for you to take care of you? So more often than not, it'll be me saying to Liz, so what have you done today that is something you took care of you? And she'll say, oh, well, I sat down and I took a quick nap because I was feeling tired. Perfect. That's great. The challenge then usually turns into, but then I feel bad because there's other stuff I should be doing, right? And I believe it was Tony Robbins about the whole should, which we'll get into. But this leads into the discussion I'm going to have with you. Then she said the other day, she said to me, it's like, for all this self-care that you talk about, when was the last time you took care of yourself in certain areas? And those areas are personal, so I'm not going to share those right now. And I looked at her. I was like, really? We're gonna flip the script here? And then I thought about that for a second. I'm like, there are areas in my life that I definitely could be showing myself a little bit more self-love. It's not those areas you would think, like not the areas you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, oh man, this is, you got to work on your body, bud. Or, oh man, look at that gut. You definitely have not been cutting back on the caloric intake when it comes to maybe a couple too many pieces of pecan pie bar. Okay, let's try this again. Pecan pie bars. Maybe a little bit of extra beer because we were having some bonfire parties and stuff like that. Like, those are the conversations I'll have with myself of, yeah, maybe let's work on this. Then in other areas, I'll look at myself in the mirror and go, oh, this is great. You're doing great. Great job. Love you, buddy. You're doing awesome. That's not really the self-care I'm talking about. The self-care I'm really talking about is what we're ending up saying to ourselves in our method of what that eventually does to the people that we're working with, the people that that are relying on us, the people that we have an interaction with every single day. What this leads into is however we talk to ourselves, however we are referencing ourselves, we are creating for us what would be known as intangible results. Now, the difference between intangible results and tangible results are rather simple. So we'll make this as simple as I can in the short amount of time that we have. The tangible result is you go to the gym, you start working out, you start changing your workout methods, you start to see definition in your arms. Your arms start to get bigger. Your waist starts to get tighter. Your legs start to get bigger. They start to get tighter. Your booty gets a little bit bigger, gets a little tighter. Whatever it is you're working on, you will eventually see those results. Those are tangible. You can feel them. You can touch them. There's something that makes them real to you because there's a vision in your mind where you say, if I can see it, I can believe it, right? And there's been that whole adage for a long time. For example, I know this coffee cup is here. I can see it. I believe it is real. It's right here. It's a tangible thing. I can touch this. Another tangible thing, you're going to write up a document. You're going to sign a check for somebody's paying you for like $20,000, whatever it is. You're like, of course, we're going to sign it and cash this. You are tangibly seeing that result. It's a tangible thing coming in. Money. When you get the cash in your hands, I have some in my pocket. It feels good. It's tangible. Like you have this idea that everything's fine because you feel something. It feels like there's a little bit more grounding that's happening, right? That's tangible. But what about the intangible stuff? What about knowing that somebody loves you, but not being able to have that? Not being able to express that in a physical way that's tangible, but having to rely on that on a inside way. When I travel, it's easy to get caught up in seeing couples when I'm traveling for business and my wife's not here with me. On some occasions she is, but most cases not able to with the way that the kids' schedules are set up right now and their ages and all this jazz, right? Personal things. I'll share a lot of personal stuff with you, but sometimes I'm like, all right, that's the line. We're not going anywhere further than that. So when I'm traveling, it's easy to get caught up in, wow, I wish I could just hug her for a few moments here. And you have to rely on that intangible feeling, the ones you can't really touch, to know, I do know she loves me. I do know that our relationship's good. I do know this. That's that indirect, that direct cause of our choices, directly making that choice to care about each other in the moments that we may not be directly able to do that. But indirectly, we can pass that back and forth by thinking about each other, messaging each other here and there. But it's not as crazy for me. It's not as crazy for her. Time differences and all this jazz. We start thinking about that. So in the intangible results side, we might even like cave in and go, I need to care more about myself. I need to have this moment. I want to understand my feelings. I want to be a part of this in a way that just makes sense to me. I want to feel it. I want it to make sense, right? I can't be the only one that feels that. Maybe I am. Maybe I am the only one that's in this space of sometimes I just want to get connected with my feelings that I feel like I haven't, right? In the past few days, I feel like I haven't really been with my feelings. And I shared that with Liz last night I felt an overwhelming presence of dread. And I wasn't really sure why. Like I didn't understand the root cause of why things are fine. Like things are going well. Directly, there's things happening, the tangible side, that I'm coming up with solutions. So it's not really that bad. Though I don't think I was dealing with any of the feelings directly that were happening. So the intangible side, I was rejecting those feelings. And when I'd ask friends in a general sense, they'd be like, Jared, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm actually not asking for me. Like I'm actually studying this and I'm generally just curious where everybody is with this. So I can take like things that are working for you and try them for me. Like there was a comedian that I saw last night, a recommendation of a friend. I don't remember her name because it was just a quick little stint. I'm going to watch it later. But it was all about like a sonar effect that it was she would do with other women. It's like, if I see you with bangs, I'm not judging you. I'm doing the sonar of, should I wear bangs too? Would they look good on me? And then I have a memory of like, nope, you tried that here and it didn't look that great. Okay, boo, and send it back out. It's a really good segment. But the idea here is getting in touch with that intangible side, the side that nobody else can see, the one you can't even see, and understanding what that process is for you and how that feels. That is powerful. That is that self-care that people are talking about that they wish they could find and they don't really know how to do it. Do you honestly think it's just the coffee shop that does it for people? Do you think it's the traveling that really does it for people? That is the vehicle to get there. That is the direct way. That is the tangible way to get that intangible result, to feel what that is. The desire to keep going at the gym, that is not tangible. You really do not receive results with a workout program within the first week or 2 weeks. Even with like a muscle memory thing, you might, if you know what you're looking for. Though if I were to work my triceps and I was to focus on that strictly, like heavily every other day, then yes, I would anticipate some type of definition change because I know what I'm working on and I know how that process works. Like a normal stance though, you probably won't see it for a couple weeks, the changes. So what is that thing that keeps you going then? On a tangible level, you don't get to see a lot of these results. What's that thing that keeps you going? It's that intangible side. It's that side that you grow when nobody's watching, right? Which we'll talk about in the next segment. But it's that side of you that you're starting to nurture. It's that side that you start to grow and build in a sense that makes a complete understanding of where you would like to go in this life. Does that part make sense so far? If so, and you're able to, just write down a couple things and feelings you're having right now. You don't need to time anything, no memories or anything, just whatever feelings you are. I have a feelings wheel, which we might be able to see, may not be able to see. There we go. You can kind of see a little bit of it before the blue screen gets all like weird and cut out. But I reference this often, but I typically will not like start in the center and work out. Like I would use this for copywriting a lot, but I typically don't start in the center. And for those of you who are just listening and not being able to watch, it's a feelings wheel. It's an emotion wheel that you can find online. And it's really just, it's 6 core feelings. And it breaks it down into like different synonyms of how you would describe these feelings and where you want to go. I typically would start in the outside rings of what I might be feeling to get to the core of what it is. So for example, and this is that intangible result. Like if I wanted to give you something here and then I'll break down a little bit more and then we'll move on. And again, if you want to talk more about this, I actually have something at the very end I'm going to share with you that would allow you to get into this space on your own, no cost in a financial sense, just some time to give for yourself. And if you want me to give you feedback, it's going to be in there as well at the end. So some of these things that I would be looking at, like the other day, I was feeling overwhelmed, right? I mentioned that on Friday. I was feeling a little overwhelmed with things that were happening. And what that ties then into is then a feeling of anxious. I'm like, I don't know if I really feel anxious. Like I'm coming up with solutions. It just felt overwhelming because I didn't prepare and plan the whole way through. And then really what that leads into is scared. So then I said to myself, yes, I do feel scared. I feel scared that something is completely out of my control, even though I'm directly influencing it, and it's still out of my control. And I'm scared that all the effort I'm putting into that is still going to leave me at ground zero with nothing to show for it. And that was a scared, like, how do I really want to approach myself then? How do I really want to grow as a person if I'm always feeling on a scared level? So then I had to reverse that. I had to look at, okay, well, what made you scared? Was it the feeling the anxious? Were you feeling anxious? A little bit. And then I started to really be honest with myself. Yeah, I was effing anxious. I didn't like this at all. It was awful because then I woke up with a sweat. I couldn't even enjoy my morning because the choice that I made was to see if this result was done yet, and it wasn't. And I was told it was going to be today. So then you start to get in that head space of, well, what else is broken? What else is wrong that I was counting on is not going to be here? Like you start to get, then it turns into like an angry. Then it turns into just mad, disgusted. Like you start really, I'm using the wheel. You start going on and on. That's the side of the intangible self-care that we've got to be we would like to be controlling of and very mindful of when we get into that moment. Sure, give yourself a chance to process your feelings. Give yourself a chance to get into that headspace. Then also give yourself a chance to like pull out, right? Give yourself a chance to breathe again. Even with deep sea diving, typically not done by one person. It's typically a small team that goes out there. And that is usually the person that's going to be doing the diving. Maybe they're done. Maybe it's a ground sea level and they have the suit on and everything. They might tug on the oxygen cord to get pulled up because of the weight. They're not going to be able to swim up. So they'll tug on and say, hey, I'm done. Pull me up. And then they'll pull them up and they'll be done. They'll give their results and they'll go back down or whatever they're going to do next, right? There was a moment that I had with a coach of mine years ago. We were doing some like spirit diving work. And one of the things she had said is, I'm going to be here to help you with this, though I'm not going to like be present. I'm going to be here when you need it. So come up with a word that you would like to say that you're only going to say when you want me to pull you out of whatever it is you're thinking about. So we don't go too deep into this like self-reflection. So I don't remember the word that I told her, but I gave her a word and she let me just explore. Like I cried a lot. I had a lot of breakdowns, a lot of revelations. I had this vision of being surrounded by like shadows and their arms on me, like pushing me down. And I had music that I was using and I was like, like I could feel like the shattering of each one. And I could see like it just like dissipate and break. And then I could feel like an overwhelming source of energy, just like trying to explode out of me. And I said the word, and then she was able to pull me out and go, okay. And then I don't remember what she did, but that was that trust system that I had. That's where we need to be is caring about ourselves before we dive into that deep end, unless we have people to support us, unless you have coaches, you have mentors, you have anything like this to give you into that space, right? It can get really dicey. Now, this is my disclaimer that I'm not telling you to do it right now. If you're driving, I'm not telling you that it's going to be the best thing in the world that's going to happen to you. I'm simply advising that sometimes we care about ourselves way too much that we block everybody out and we become distant and we start to become angry. Not directly, it's just like an indirect result because we're so focused on them, like we're so protective then, right? We can go from one extreme to the other, but if you know anything about me, I'm all about finding that balance right in the middle. You want to play around on the extremities of being so self-aware that you're like so in tune with everything and everybody's saying the wrong thing to you because you were clear in your emotions. How come they can't be clear? To the other end of F this, I'm not going to think about anything or feel anything. I'm going to be a cold-hearted bee, and that's just how it is. And you always have to deal with it, right? There's those extremes. I like you to balance right in the center. You can tip back and forth, but right in the center. And really what I mean by that is if you are looking to really, really, really make the impact that you would like to make, especially if you're talking to leads in your business, you're talking to clients, you're talking to anybody that's outside of your world that you must deal with, and most jobs require us to be outside of our world to interact with other people, that self-care that you do is going to change the way you talk to yourself, which will then change the way you feel about yourself, which will then change the way that you feel about others, which will then change the way that you talk to others, not just the behavioral side, but just in a thought process. If you say a kind word to yourself, you're going to feel pretty good. And when you feel pretty good, You want others to feel pretty good, because that's a great thing. It's like an osmosis, because if you feel bad, sometimes you want other people to feel bad, right? But so if you feel good, there must be a natural connection or chemistry that we would like others to feel good with us, right? Because we don't want to feel alone in that space. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, right? There's little scenarios for each one. So if you're helping them to feel good, then you're probably going to say things that you would like for them to feel good in the space of. If your sales are low, if you're not getting raises, if you're not seeing promotions, you're not seeing all these things, instead of blaming all that external stuff, instead of blaming the tangible things, what are we doing on the inside of ourselves? What are we doing on our own emotions? What are we doing with our own thoughts and our feelings that would then give us a space to grow with other people? Did you actually compliment yourself today? Like, truly mean it. I was wearing my blue, like, it's a dark gray. Well, maybe it's like a blue gray, and a hoodie, and it was interacting with the blue screen. And I'm like, well, I really want to wear it because it's comfy. But I'm like, it's okay. It's comfy. I like this gray shirt. It's going to be fine. It looks good on me. I just did my hair up a little bit. I did it like a part. So it's not in the center, but it's like a little off to the side. I put beard oil on. Like, I feel good. I feel good about myself today. And I gave that compliment. So then I was starting to feel that. And I'm like, hey, let's record. We got traveling coming up. We're going to record today and we'll record later this week. Let's do it. I'm excited. So I set everything up and all that. Then the camera wasn't working properly. I'm like, that's okay. We'll figure it out. It'll be all right. Could you imagine if I showed up to share with you like intangible feelings and all these kind of stuff, and I was just in like a horrible state? Could you imagine what that might do to you? Could you imagine what that would do to everybody else that listens? And thank you, by the way, for your support. But for everybody that listens, think about what that does. If I'm in a bad mode, and I'm in a bad mood or a not pleasant mood, and I hop on and I record something for you, or I record something for a client, that lasts forever. That is not just in passing. That lasts forever. And when I say it to somebody, even though it's not recorded, that person's going to remember that, because they're going to remember how I made them feel or helped them feel. They're not going to remember what I said. It's the feeling that they had behind that. Your intangible results that you care about, who you are becoming and how you're becoming that person, will then impact directly the tangible results that you see in your life. Maybe not right away. That's the one thing to keep in mind before I wrap this up. Not right away. You'll see it eventually. But for us to expect it to happen just like that will lead us down a path that's destructive. And we don't want to do that to ourselves. We really don't. We want to build ourselves up so we can build other people up. Don't have to be at our best. Just build yourself up today. Say something kind. What's one thing you could say to yourself right now without thinking about it? What's one thing you say? You do your hair good? Did you like the way it turned out today? You've been at the gym. You like the way your arms are cut? You cutting down that waistline? Maybe you have to get new pants because you're starting to work out right, or you changed your diet habits. Maybe you finally shared with your partner how you truly feel and you're unsure what's going to happen next, but you know that you are going to be okay because you were honest with yourself. There's got to be something. And feel free to share it if you like, but just share it with yourself right now. Just write it. If you can write it down, write it down. If not, pause this, make a quick little note for yourself, pull over on the side of the road real quick, just to say, I feel good about myself because blah, 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 and put it in. And then go about your day. You will subconsciously remember that. You'll have to tell yourself a few times, but when you say it once, your memory is going to create a new neurological pathway to say, hey, that's new. We should probably remember it. If it happens again, let's keep bringing it up. If not, it's okay. We'll recall it if we need it. That's a whole other segment. We could talk about that. That's another segment we can get into. But for now, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go warm up my coffee. Go ahead and warm up your beverage. The last part we're going to get into is really about who's watching you and why it may not be as important as you think. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to take a quick break. I don't have a message for you yet. I'll have that message at the end. So we should be going right into the next one, so long as editing was fine and editing Jared did okay. And if that's the case, then I'll see you in a couple seconds. Greetings, Titans. Welcome back. And apparently the blue screen took part of my shoulder. Those listening on the podcast are like, geez. And what am I missing on video? Not really missing much. Just the different expressions I have. I would encourage you to check it out. It's on the YouTube channel. But again, it's all in the show notes, so don't worry about it. So to wrap this up for you, to give you the last bit of segment we're going to be talking about, this is something that I've been hearing often a lot. There's something that my kids will talk about. I will talk about for myself. I hear my wife share and everything in that sense. I see memes going around it. I wish I would have saved the one meme that was about it. If I can remember it off the top of my head, I will do it. But it was anxiety. It was a post about like, anxiety to me or me to anxiety, and then depression jumps in, and then also the first trait was like, nobody is thinking about you. And then depression said ever. And then the anxiety is like, no, that's not what I meant. And that's the part where we really start to get stuck in our minds. We get stuck in this idea that we don't want to make a decision because everybody's watching us. And like I had alluded to in the previous segment, people are watching you, right? There are people who are sitting and waiting on every single word that you say for a reason of theirs that will never make sense to you. Because there are people that you're listening to and you're hanging on every word they say for reasons that are only mattering to you. Now, you may not be in that space. You may have broke free of that like pedestal type thought process. I think there might be some people in this world that you look at and go, wow, if I could just meet them and talk to them for a few minutes, that'd be so great. Like you might have a starstruck feeling. You might have this aspect about it. And typically, the more you learn about people, the more you realize that in order to put them up on the pedestal, I got to put myself down. If I'm going to applaud their efforts, I might be putting myself down at the same time. Now, that's not always the case, okay? A pedestal doesn't mean that somebody is being idolized, right? They may have stepped up there themselves just to have their voice being heard over the crowd of people that they're trying to speak over because it's a lot of noise. Do you ever do that for yourself? Like you have a lot of thoughts going in your mind and you have to verbally almost like find a room, just be like, all right, everybody shut up. And you are aware that there's an auditory overload. Maybe not, but maybe you're aware that there's an auditory overload and you are the one that gets the megaphone that stands on the pedestal. This is BS. We need to stop. And here's what we're going to do. Then you might get off the pedestal and then you might talk. There's a lot of like situational things that happen with everything. But when it comes into this aspect, again, watching football, everybody's watching, right? Everybody watching a football game. And again, we're in football season as I'm recording this. So there's a lot of good games yesterday. Some of them not so great. I live in Pennsylvania. I'm 2 hours west of Philadelphia. So clearly, people watching the Philadelphia Eagles play against the Dallas Cowboys last night, which you're not here for, was a big deal. For me, I didn't really care. I was like, oh, cool, football game. I heard everybody else in the house reacting like, it's like 9:40. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Yes, I guess that would include me as being an old person because I go to bed sometimes before 10, but I also get up between 5 and 6. So whatever, you take whatever you want. So what I was getting from that is every person watching that event was living their own story, was living their own thoughts, had their own expectations, had their own desires, had everything you think, everything you bring to something you're watching, a movie, a music video, or reaction to something, whatever it is, you are experiencing in a way that nobody else is going to experience. Some things might be similar, but it won't be overall the same. That being said, when everybody's watching a football game or everybody's watching a performance of something, you as the person being entertained are watching it for the simple fact of entertain me, captivate my attention, and keep me here long enough because I want to enjoy myself. That's why I'm giving the time for this. Sometimes you might be doing it to avoid a responsibility. Sometimes you might be doing it because you don't want to deal with something or you just want to clear your head. Whatever your reasons are, it doesn't matter. Their job is to entertain. Your job is to be entertained. It's to stay in this space long enough that you get what it is you came for and then go. The coach, the director, the composer, anybody that is in a controlling environment, they're going to be looking at this in a different way than you will. If it's coach of a sports team, they're going to be looking about the plays they practiced. They're going to be looking about the things they said in the locker room to see if that's being implemented. They might have had special things for each individual to do, and other coaches may have been like, all right, did you try this? Did you do this? Okay, it was performance time. You didn't do it. Much like you might hire somebody to be a therapist for you. You might hire somebody to be a personal trainer. You might hire, they're looking for something different than what you were looking for. But in our minds, in our brains, I hope you know where I'm going with this. If you do, don't kill the punchline. Not that anybody else, unless you're listening with friends. What this means is we, in our minds, are looking at this when people watch us. And typically, if we are not taking care of ourselves and we are allowing anything to happen and just c'est la vie and just doing whatever, and we're not giving ourselves that time and care of attention of things we really care about for ourselves, we will think, oh my gosh, they're going to judge me because I did something wrong. My hand's going up in the video podcast. Tell me that has happened at least once or twice in your life where somebody was watching you do your work and you had a couple thoughts like, oh my gosh, they're going to tell me what I did something wrong. Oh my gosh, stop looking at me. I just want to do my job. What is your problem? Like you start getting defensive. The natural thing. Why? What makes that natural? Right? So yes, people are going to be watching you. And we think they're watching to say we did something wrong, to say that we're not doing it the right way, to say that we did something in a way that wasn't going to work out. Like we broke this system. That's what we think is going on, that we did something completely wrong and they're here to judge us and tell us that we need to do it right. This happens across the world, all over. It does not matter your society. It does not matter your culture, your language, your ethnicity, your race. It doesn't matter. We internally tend to err on the side of defense. And the simplest reason for that, the brain wants to make sure you're safe. That's it. That's all it cares about. Your brain's functions is to make sure every part inside of your body is functioning in a way to keep you physically safe, physically taken care of. That's every 5 seconds, your brain's like, oh, do you need any water? Okay, cool, there's some. Do you need any food? Oh, cool, there's some in the pantry. Great. Do you need to go to the bathroom? Great, because the toilet's right over there. Perfect. Okay. Do we have anything? Are you cold? Would you like a jacket? Okay, cool. There's one over there. Do you want a blanket instead? Okay, cool. Do you want shoes? Because I know your feet, you got to go outside. Oh my gosh, there's outside. Are we protected from the elements? Did you put sunglasses on it? Like, it's like the helicoptering parent, right? The parent that just kind of helicopters over everything. It's like, oh, did you get those grapes that I gave you? Are you hungry? You look hungry. What's wrong? You look like you just shoplifted a store. You got bags in your eyes for days. Like, we do that to ourselves, and we think that when people are watching, they're doing the same thing. Some people are. I will give you that credit. Some people, I can hear for you. Some people are. They're watching you to judge you. And I've had my share of bullies growing up. And now most of them reached out within the past few years like, hey, listen, man, I really got to apologize for how I was back then. I actually just felt intimidated being around you because you knew these things in like math class and I didn't, and I felt stupid. And I'm sorry, it wasn't the right thing to do. And I was like, dude, it's fine. Don't worry about it. So we'll talk every now and then. I think we had made lunch plans. We just didn't, kids and all that, we just didn't get to do it. It was like, so for me to think like, oh my gosh, these people like made my life a living hell in high school. And now all of a sudden it's like we're getting together over coffee to talk about family. Like it blew my mind. Like, of course, everybody's capable of change and everything. Everybody can mean it. But in the same token, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's not something I would have expected, because that was not what my brain was taught in that process. And I wasn't strong enough at that time to say, and I'm not beating myself up, but I didn't have the resources at that point to say, hey, listen, they might be going through some stuff of their own. Parents said it now and then, though the phrases of them picking on me for wearing glasses or being skinny or anything in that sense overruled the thoughts that my parents would have said, because in my brain, well, they're my parents, I have to say that, right? Because again, that's what media taught. Do you see where this whole like episode is, where we got into some serious like heavy stuff here? I probably should have put a disclaimer at the front. Maybe editing Jared will do that. But you see like where all of this starts to get together, like directly and indirectly, the choices that we make then start to give us the results that we can either feel or not feel on the internal side, which will then impact the way that we talk and work with other people in the world. It's a lot to take in. And it's a lot to understand where that is. Some of you picked it up. You're like, boom, I got this, Jared. Let's get this done. Some of you are like, I don't really understand any of what that means, and I'm going to need some more time, which we'll talk about right in about like 5 or so minutes, right? But just hang on with me for the next few moments here. This part is really what's going to matter. No, I mean, all of it does, but this is like that big takeaway, that big ending piece that you get, like the climax of a story. The point is, the people watching you that truly are invested in seeing you grow as a person are only looking for the areas to help you improve. They're not trying to come down on you. They're not trying to beat you up. They are not trying to tell you that you're doing wrong for the sake of doing wrong. And if they are coming across that way, I can almost assuredly tell you that it's because they're scared that you may turn out worse than them because they failed you. This could be a coach. This could be a parent. This could be a mentor. This could be somebody you hired. It could work. And being in the coaching space and an educator and all this, I am very careful about what I'm sharing and how I'm sharing it. And I will tell people up front, please test everything I tell you. Please challenge everything that I tell you. Just because it's worked for me, I cannot promise it's going to work for you, but let's try it and see what happens, because I haven't seen you try this yet. And we do it with parenting too. I will flat out tell. One of the things about being a step parent that I don't think is educated enough or even like praised enough is that when we give compliments or when we encourage the children that are not biologically ours, however it is that comes into play, you adopt kids, you marry into whatever, we actually mean it, because there's no stigma that's in the society around it. Now, I mean it for all the children that are biologically mine as well, But I also mean that in the sense of there's outs. Like you get the whole thing like, I don't have to listen to you because you're not my dad. I was like, that's okay. You're not my kid either. So now that we're even, can we deal with this process, or can we finally talk about this in a way that like two people would, not father figure to a daughter figure, father figure to son figure? Like, can we do this on a people to people basis? People are watching you. And the ones that care about progress, the ones that care about your future and their future, are only watching to see if they can improve themselves, or if this is the time for them to jump in and say, can I share with you what I've learned? They don't mean it to control. What you see in media, if this episode ever gets released and stayed, because I'm going to go against the grain a bit, whenever you see in media that people are doing whatever they say because they have like an ulterior motive, that's like 1 to 5% of the people that are watching you are actually like that. The 95 to 99% of people that actually are watching you are trying to see, am I screwing it up? Are they doing it better? Could I do it like them? Is that for me? Should I jump in and offer my advice? Is this something that I should think about? They're not watching you to judge you that you're doing it wrong. And if people are doing that, lack that strong case of like self-awareness and self-care. So you can't even get mad at them because they're not even on the same page. The amount of ways that we can let go of all this expected pressure. It's not that you don't want pressure in your life. You just like to choose what kind of pressure it is. Am I wrong? You don't care that things might get tough in your life because you know that something good's going to come out of that. It's when you get that feeling that somebody else puts an unnecessary obstacle in your life. It's almost like they dropped it in, like they're playing God. That's the part that probably throws you off. It's like, no. We had a bunch of that in 2020, all the way up through 2022. I'm not going to mention it. Rhymes with Rovid. And there's things that rhyme with dab. There was a lot of that going on. And it took a lot for people to say, I will take it because I would like to, not because you're forcing me to do whatever this is. Believe that or not, if you gave people a choice and you want them to do something, and I asked about this earlier on my social media accounts, what's the difference between a demand and a request? And so far, some people have answered in, what ways that I thought. But again, I'm asking it not because I want to condemn people. I'm asking it of, I learned something new and I'd like to peer review it. Who else has learned this? And then I will share what it is that I've learned to see if that helps people grow. No right or wrong, no good or bad, no black or white. This world that we operate in, the world that we live in, 100% gray. So then it does require us to have some level of morality. It does require us to have some level of what we think is justice, which again is tough to do in a society. But what we all agree on, that maybe doing something that might stop somebody in a way that's just for us doesn't seem, that's in the movies, that's in the books, right? The hero stops the villain. Well, what makes the villain the villain? What makes the hero the hero? Is it their cause? Is it their reason? Is it because more people side with the hero and more people side with the villain? And The Karate Kid, was Johnny Lawrence really the bad guy? Well, if you watch Cobra Kai, you might have a different opinion on that. Two sides to every story of that. If people are watching you, they just want to see if they're messing up. Oh, wow, they're doing it better. Oh, this person just made 6 figures in this month. Oh, no, I'm doing something wrong. No, you're not. They just did something that worked for them. Doesn't mean you did something wrong. This guy keeps getting promotions. How come I don't get promotions? What am I doing wrong? You might start asking questions, asking your boss, hey, I would love to get in this type of work. What do I need to do to be in that work? What kind of person are you guys looking for that position? That's what watching is meant to do. It's meant to give you a litmus test of where you are and ask yourself, is that something I really want? Is that somewhere I really want to be? Doesn't matter. Then decide if you really want to dive into it. You don't have to. You don't. We always think that we have to go to a job. Why? This goes with Stephen Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey. You don't have to go to a job. Well, yeah, I do. Well, what happens if you don't? I'll lose my home. Okay. So you would choose to lose your home because you're choosing not to get payments. You're choosing not to get money to pay for what that is or whatever the income needs to be at that point. You just choose not to. You don't have to. Nobody wakes up and says, yo, if you don't go to this job, you're dead. I mean, maybe sometimes that happens. The general majority, when we go, oh gosh, it's Monday, I have to get up and go to work. Oh gosh, it's Saturday, I have to go to bed to get up for whatever. Oh gosh, I have to eat this again. Are you kidding me? It's peanut butter and jelly again. Whatever. That's going in an entirely different topic. I don't want to dovetail too much into that. But the point that I'm saying to you is people are going to watch you, but it's not what you think. They're not watching to see what you did wrong. They're watching to see if they screwed up. They're watching to see if you did it better. They're watching to see like, oh my gosh, is this great? Some people will ridicule you. Welcome to real life. You will ridicule others. Doesn't it balance out? I've never made fun of anybody in my life. Really? You never beat yourself down? You never looked at yourself in the mirror and said, oh, you look horrible today. Really? You've never picked on anyone? Come on, Titan, come on. You and I are better than this, and we know it. I could dovetail for this, but this leads me into this. So if you got to run, which again, this is a podcast. I don't know where else you're going to go. You're going to listen to something else? Of course you are. To toot my own horn on Apple, last week we were related to the, I think it was Andy Frisella's one podcast. I was like, well, look at that. Looks like we're talking about a few things, just a different spectrum of how we do things. Mad props to Andy Frisella and everything he's doing. But I just saw it. I was like, oh, that's fun. We're in top related. That's really cool. Anyway, not for you. That part doesn't matter. But with my closing thoughts to you, go easy on yourself. Be a little kind to yourself today. Give yourself a pat on the back. If you've never done this thing called 1 minute praise, I'm just going to walk you through it real quick. Okay. The 1 minute praise is not just about making a sale. It's not just about getting a job. It's not about getting the girl, the guy. It's not about getting laid. It's not about anything in that space, right? Am I going to get canceled because I said laid? It's not about any of that. The 1 minute praise is all about the little decisions that you make. Those little choices that will indirectly, those indirect choices that make the big impact, right? You're directly doing that right now. It's just you don't get to see it, okay? And at some points, if I flub them back and forth, I apologize in advance for that, or now post advance, I guess. My brain is going really fast around it. I can do another class on it. We can talk separately outside of the podcast, and we can have like a separate room where we can do Q&A and all this. We can do that. But the point that I'm extending to you, the 1 minute praise, back on track. The 1 minute praise is really this: acknowledge what you did, acknowledge what the choice is. I called that person today. How did you feel about it? It felt really good because I typically don't call people. What happened? Well, they didn't buy, but I'm glad that I called. Good. Give yourself a pat on the back, ring a bell, give yourself an applause, do something that's like, hey, you did it today. Great job. Remember that and move forward. You don't typically email your list in business? Well, guess what? Did you shoot an email today? Perfect. If you didn't, don't beat yourself up. Just go do it. Right? Who knows what you're going to write about? I had a friend of mine challenge me on Friday. He's like, if you've never done a post that just has a link to buy, do it. Just do it right now. Boom, sale. I'm like, what? I was like, what is it complicating things in business? Like so many times, you don't know if that girl likes you, or that guy likes you, whatever. Did you ask him? Hey, I'd like to take you out to dinner. You want to go out to dinner? I'd like to take you to a movie. You want to go to a movie? I'd like to chat later tonight. You available? I want to FaceTime. You available? What's your snap? Can we talk? However the kids are doing it these days. Did you do it? Did you ask her? Did you ask him? Did you say something? Do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no. They're already saying no because you didn't give them a chance to say yes. Whew, that's another. Maybe we'll make that another topic. Maybe we'll make that for next week's episode. But anyway, I digress. So what I wanted to share with you in the show notes, I am a certified life coach through Dr. Shad Helmstetter's Life Institute. And really what that means is I took a big focus on goal setting, on a personal development and a business development. I've got a few clients that we're going to talk about that during this week. So what that really means for you is I have put together a form based off of what he gave us that will walk you through finding what you care about, finding about where your ideas are, and some goals that you would like to set for yourself. You can do right now, right? The form takes a little bit. It does require you to have about 20 to 25 minutes of time that's uninterrupted if you can. I've had people fill it out interrupted time and they still found it to be extremely helpful. There is no expectation for you to do anything beyond that. You do not have to work with me privately. You do not have to be a part of my business. You don't have to, I don't do MLM, but you don't have to do anything. All I'm saying, I'd like to gift this to you. It doesn't cost you anything but your time. So if you've ever sat down for 20 to 25 minutes and felt aimless, or maybe felt that you weren't doing the things that you'd like to do, or maybe you're not even sure if you're in a career that you want to do, you're not even in a relationship that maybe you're like, I don't know if I should be here. Before you quit that job, before you break up in that relationship, before you start going down this rabbit hole, just go through the form. See if it helps you. If it doesn't, well, you lost 20, 25 minutes. At least you weren't stuck in your own thoughts. You were kind of doing it with somebody else, right? I mean, you get the idea. And if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. There's no obligation to do anything. I promise you, there's none. I might message you here and there just to see how you're doing with it, but there's no, listen, I don't do this for money. I don't have to do this for money, okay? I'm doing this because I would like to do this. I like chatting, if you haven't noticed. I like having coffee. I like doing all these things. I like having these moments, these vulnerable times. I like it, right? And I definitely want OT. This is one of the longer episodes. This might happen. I might need to break it into segments. But again, like I've done before, what's your biggest takeaway? What's the biggest thing you've taken from this? What's one thing you could try today that you haven't tried yet that you would like to because of this episode? I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear what you want me to talk about next. Everything that you need to know is in the show notes. I appreciate you. And like always, know this. Know that I care about you. Know that I appreciate you. And know that today is a great day. And even if you have not experienced it yet yourself, hang in there, Titan. I know you will soon. See you in the next episode.